The cop knocked on my door before I even finished my morning coffee, said I was illegally abandoning my property. Across the street, Cheryl Holcomb. Our HOA president and self-appointed queen of Lake Cedar stood there smirking, arms folded like she'd just won a trophy. I was just trying to move out of the house my late wife loved, and she'd called the cops on me. What she didn't know was that she'd just picked a fight with the man who drew every single property line in this entire county. I'm Tom Ward, 67 years old, a retired veteran and land surveyor. My wife, Eleanor, passed last year. We built this lake house together 30 years ago, long before the HOA ever existed. She loved the cedar tree out front, said it felt like it was guarding us. When she died, I built a small birdhouse for her, made from a piece of old barnwood she found on a walk. That tree, that lake, that birdhouse, they were her soul in physical form. I decided to downsize, move into town, and donate the backwoods to a wildlife trust in her name. It felt like the right way to say goodbye. Then Cheryl decided I couldn't. That morning, the cop was just doing his job, poor kid. He said the HOA had rules about continuous occupancy. I told him calmly, "Officer, I'm not abandoning anything. I sold the house. The moving truck's coming tomorrow." He glanced across the street at Cheryl, who was pretending to care about property values. She told him I couldn't donate land without HOA approval. I almost laughed. I'd surveyed this land before she even knew it existed. I knew every iron pin, every easement, every damn blade of grass. The cop realized it was nonsense and left, but Cheryl didn't. She leaned in and whispered, "We'll see who's right, Mr. Ward." Then she walked away like a villain out of a low-budget soap opera. What came next was a slow-motion ambush. The next morning, there was a violation notice taped to my front door, $200 for damage to community property. My moving truck had left tire marks on the grass. Then, another $150 for abandoned materials. I'd left flattened cardboard boxes for recycling day. Then came the kicker $300 for unauthorized modification to a boundary. She'd seen me replace a rotted fence post. Each letter was a message she wasn't done. Then, one afternoon, I looked out my window and saw the birdhouse. Eleanor's birdhouse lying in splinters on the ground. Pulled down. Next to it, another white envelope, installation of non-approved architectural element, $50 fine. I felt something inside me go cold. That wasn't a rule violation. That was desecration. They'd come onto my property and destroyed the one thing that still made this house feel like home. That night I decided to fight. I showed up at the next HOA meeting with the birdhouse pieces in one hand and the official county plat map in the other. Cheryl sat up front surrounded by her cronies clipboard-wielding Gina Wallace and Dale Skinner, the ex-mall cop who now patrolled the neighborhood like it was Fallujah. I laid everything on the table. "These fines are baseless," I said. "And the land you're claiming behind my house isn't yours. It's mine. Separate parcel, separate ID." Cheryl didn't even look. She banged her gavel. "You're out of order, Mr. Ward. Disputes must be submitted in writing. And if you attempt to transfer that land, we'll take legal action." The room was silent. People stared at their shoes. I walked out with everyone's silence pressing against my back like a weight. That night, I sat alone in my half-empty living room. The walls echoed. I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I was too old for this fight. Maybe I should just sign whatever papers they wanted, pay their stupid fines, and leave. I looked at Eleanor's photo and whispered, "I'm sorry, Ellie. Maybe I messed this up." But when I opened my old surveyor's field box to pack it, I found something, a dusty folder labeled County Easement Agreement, 1989 to 2044. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were the maps and signatures from when I'd been contracted to design the drainage zones and utility easements for this entire area 30 years ago. It hit me like lightning. The HOA's boundaries were drawn from a cheap, unofficial map. I knew because I drew the real one. Why? Cheryl's empire, her little kingdom, was built on a lie. For the next few nights, I became a ghost. I slipped out after midnight with my old tools, my GPS, and a pouch of survey flags. I moved through those woods like I was back on patrol, finding every old iron pin, every benchmark, every buried truth. Each flag I planted whispered, This is mine. This is the truth. On the third night, my neighbor Matt Brody, another veteran, caught me out there. He said Cheryl had fined him for a storm door being half an inch too wide. His wife was in tears. "You giving up, Tom?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer. I just looked toward Cheryl's house, her porch light glowing like a watchtower. I gave him a slow nod. No words needed. But Cheryl struck back first. 2 sheriff's deputies showed up in my driveway one morning, and behind them, Cheryl in her spotless SUV. The deputy handed me an emergency injunction. "You are to cease and desist all activity on the undeveloped parcel," he said. Cheryl had told a judge I was dumping contaminants near the lake. The deputies made me remove all my survey flags. Each one I pulled out of the dirt felt like a piece of myself being ripped away. News spread fast. The HOA's gossip patrol made sure everyone heard that I'd polluted the lake. The Wildlife Trust paused my donation, saying they couldn't accept land tied up in legal disputes. Overnight, my reputation was gone. I sat in that empty house surrounded by boxes and felt hollow. Like Cheryl had taken not just my land but the last piece of peace I had left. Then, late that night, something arrived in my mailbox, a letter from the county executive's office. I hadn't requested anything, but the clerk I'd spoken to must have flagged my case. It confirmed the existence of a dormant public easement running around the entire Lake Cedar development. I read the description twice. My heart started pounding. The easement cut right under Cheryl's property line. She didn't own her backyard, I did. The next morning, I filed paperwork to reactivate the easement, declaring it a county access road. Perfectly legal. The law was on my side. 2 days later, heavy trucks rolled into the cul-de-sac. Cheryl came running out shrieking. "You can't do this. This is private." The foreman checked his clipboard. "Not anymore, ma'am. County order. Public road." They bolted a brand new sign into the ground. Public access, no HOA restrictions. I sat on my porch and sipped my coffee while Cheryl screamed into her phone, watching her little kingdom crumble. That night, I invited my neighbors, the ones she'd bullied for years, into my garage. I had my projector set up a satellite map on the wall. I traced the official county lines, then drew in the easement. When I zoomed in, everyone saw it. Cheryl's backyard, her fence, even part of her house sat on land she didn't own. I said quietly, "She says I'm breaking HOA rules, but according to this, she's been squatting on my land." You could have heard a pin drop. The next day, the local news came knocking. They'd heard about the man who built a road through an HOA. I stood in my driveway and told the reporter I'm not claiming anything that isn't mine. I drew these lines 30 years ago. I didn't buy her house, I just own the dirt under it. That line made the evening news, and it flipped the entire neighborhood upside down. Cheryl panicked, called an emergency HOA meeting to restore order. The clubhouse was packed, no more quiet compliance, just tension. She started reading a statement, calling me a liar, saying I'd fabricated documents. I stood up in the back and said, "Before she finishes her fairy tale, let's look at some facts." I unrolled a giant map and pinned it behind her. The red outline showed the HOA boundaries. The blue one showed the easement. The blue cut straight through her property. Then I read from a notarized letter. As of this morning, the Eleanor Ward Conservation Trust legally owns the easement and all attached parcels. The HOA's use of this land for landscaping and access constitutes encroachment. The Trust's invoice for 30 years of back access fees totals $38,650. The room exploded. One neighbor yelled, "You fined us for mailboxes while you built on his land." Another shouted, "You used our dues for lawyers to protect your backyard." The crowd turned on her. Cheryl was red-faced, slamming her gavel, yelling, "Order! Order!" But no one listened. Then a calm voice came from the back. The county planning director stepped forward. I'd invited him just in case. "Mr. Ward's survey is accurate," he said. "The easement is legally his to control." That was it. The end. Matt Brody stood up and made a motion for a vote of no confidence in the HOA president. Hands went up everywhere. Cheryl's reign ended right there in front of everyone she'd bullied. Within weeks, the fallout spread. She tried to forge signatures to reclaim her title, got caught. Tried to bribe an inspector, got reported. Finally, she was arrested on her own front lawn for falsifying public documents. The same spot where she once smirked at me as the police came to my door. The HOA collapsed. No one wanted to take her place. The community voted to dissolve it entirely. The land I reclaimed became part of the Wildlife Trust in Eleanor's name. And as the county crews cleared the new walking trail, I realized something. Cheryl thought she was defending property lines, but she never understood what ownership really meant. Ownership isn't about control, it's about respect.